This is the last in a grouping of videos having a look at where vehicles traveling on the correct side of the road, for a variety of reasons, land up on the wrong side of the road facing oncoming traffic. In this particular video, we will have a look at swerving that causes a vehicle to land up on the wrong side of the road. As we go through each of the successive real-life clips to follow, we will discuss practical points that will put you in a much better position to make a wise decision should you land up in such a scenario where you have to face swerving by either another driver or yourself. And so this information will help you to mitigate or minimize any danger insofar as a head-on collision is concerned. In the animation, we're having a look at one possible scenario that would cause a vehicle to swerve. We've got the driver of the white vehicle that's traveling in the right-hand lane, and notice that the road tapers off into a single lane. The driver of the red vehicle is traveling faster than the white vehicle and so approaches the white vehicle at speed, and in order to avoid rear-ending the vehicle, the driver then swerves onto the opposite side of the road, but directly into the path of the oncoming green vehicle. In this first real-life clip, we'll have a look at the options that the driver could have taken that landed up swerving, which is this driver over here. So we'll watch that first of all, and then we'll come back and discuss a few points. Let's just advance it slightly. So at this point, the driver had really three options. He could have gone into the right-hand lane. He could have continued straight ahead and impacted the driver ahead of him. Or, as you saw, he could have swerved to his left into the path of oncoming traffic. Now, each of these options would have been increasingly more dangerous. You will have noticed that this vehicle is traveling fast enough that had the driver moved into the right-hand lane, there was enough space for him to be able to do so without impacting any vehicle. So no impact involved there. If he continued straight and hit the driver ahead of him, the impact force would have been his speed less the speed of this vehicle traveling in the same direction as he is. Whereas the greatest force or impact would be in exactly what he did, going to the opposite lane, because now we've got the combined speeds of the vehicles involved. And the thing with speed and impact is that as the speed increases, it's not just that the impact linearly increases as well, but it exponentially increases. So as the speed increases, the impact force becomes even greater to an exponential degree. I've got a separate page on the website dealing with impact. I'll put the link in the description section of the video below, and that gives more technical information with regards to impact forces. So the driver here made exactly the wrong decision. Always have a look at the option that's going to provide the least amount of impact force. So if there wasn't a right-hand lane here, it would have been better for him to actually rear-end the driver ahead of him, because the combined speeds, his speed less the speed of the driver ahead of him, would have been a far less force than had he impacted an oncoming vehicle. And you will have noticed that this vehicle, judging by the height at which the video is taken, is possibly a truck or a bus, but a much larger vehicle, so carrying more weight and momentum, which would have meant even greater force and impact on this driver. Where you've got the option, as I mentioned in the previous clip, then it's best always, bar a few circumstances, it's best always to rather avoid going onto the wrong side of the road because of the head-on collision and the combined speeds of the vehicles involved. In this clip, we see that the driver does swerve, and he swerves onto the shoulder But now there is a danger that where the shoulder is slippery, you can well land up on the opposite side of the road anyway. So we'll see that take place in this particular clip. So the option to swerve onto the shoulder in most cases would be the better option, obviously depending on what the shoulder section is like. So here there's some gravel, sand, which makes it rather slippery. It could be that there's a very steep embankment down the side here, which would be more dangerous than going onto the opposite side of the road. Here we see there's not really an oncoming vehicle that's close ahead. And so in this case, it would have been safer for him to go onto the opposite side of the road. But that shouldn't be our first option. Only if you see that it is clear and it's safe to do so, then you go onto the opposite side of the road. But rather, in most cases, to take the shoulder section. Now, this is where planning ahead can make a difference. So as you're driving, always think of your escape route. If you're suddenly confronted with a situation where now you have to swerve, have you already worked out before the time which is going to be your best option? Because by doing that, when the situation does arise, then you're going to make the right decision. You don't have to, at that time, try and make a decision. And that's the advantage of this course. It's helping us to try and foresee problems, plan ahead, work out what our escape route is, so that when a situation does arise, we don't then have to think about it. We're in a better position to know which action to carry out. Here we've got, again, an example of swerving. And here the driver does exactly the wrong thing. Let's just advance it. Swerves into the oncoming traffic. And notice that there is a bit of a verge or shoulder section over here. So even if he was to hit up against the railing, the damage done to his vehicle, had he taken this route instead of that route, would have been far less than a head-on collision as he's involved in here. I've included this clip because we see an oncoming vehicle. There is a vehicle on the side of the road, and this vehicle's coming up at a bit of a speed behind him. As you're driving along and you can judge the speed and distance, and you see that you're going to get to the vicinity of this vehicle perhaps at the same time as the oncoming vehicle, then you know that he's not going to have much of a gap in order to bypass or overtake this vehicle, unless you, as the camera, you foresee that and you move a bit onto the side of the road, and that will allow him that space to pass. But the camera doesn't do that, doesn't foresee the danger, and lands up with this vehicle swerving out of control. So there the camera swerved at the last moment, but had he done so earlier, that oncoming driver would have seen that he's been courteous, he's providing the space for him to bypass the vehicle in front of him, and perhaps the situation wouldn't have arisen. So this clip I've included because where we have a truck swerving, and this often happens because trucks carrying a weight and the momentum of the vehicle involved, a much larger vehicle, they've got a far greater stopping distance or distance to slow down than what just a normal average family-sized car would be. So you find that there's more often a case where trucks now have to swerve out the way because they can't slow down in time. So just be cautious of that where you see a lot of trucks on the road. Now, the danger with a truck swerving onto the opposite side of the road is that when the truck does so, and the cabbie may even move out onto the shoulder section, but the problem is that normally his trailer still then blocks the road. And so you're left with little choice or option to be able to move onto the side of the road that's between the oncoming traffic and the vehicle that's crossed over onto your side of the road because of the trailer that then blocks the pathway. So in this case, it's still best to try and go onto the shoulder section to try and avoid the truck and the trailer. As we advance it, you'll see the trailer's in the way, and so the driver didn't have much choice there. This is the last clip in the video, and I've included it because we see a vehicle does land up swerving. But what I want to point out is that we've got a vehicle coming down just to the left side of the camera, and he enters the intersection at far too great a speed for an intersection. So the vehicles on this side and that side, so for the oncoming driver, he could be very easily be distracted by the vehicles on either side here, and perhaps his visibility even a little bit blocked of the vehicle that's traveling down the middle here. And so he's not quite aware that there is a vehicle approaching, so it crosses over into the intersection, and so the driver going through the intersection has to swerve out of the way, but lands up on the wrong side of the road. So the main thing that I wanted to point out here is that whenever you enter an intersection, always slow down, obviously dependent on traffic behind you. You don't want to irritate the drivers behind you, but rather enter into an intersection at a much slower speed, always anticipating that there would be a vehicle ahead of you, an oncoming vehicle that's going to be turning into your path. We do cover intersections in a lot of detail in the next part of the course, and so there we'll go into all the different permutations and combinations that you find at an intersection. But I wanted to use this opportunity just to stress the importance of never entering an intersection at a high speed. please like, subscribe, and get notified.